All right, hello, and thanks for having me. So it's my privilege to share some things with you, and let's see what's up there. Okay, that was already covered. So let me ask you, just so I can see again, Mario might have asked you, but how many of you are here hearing a presentation like this for the first time? Okay, and how many of you were not here in the last hour when we were doing it for health professionals that are hearing for the first? Okay, so we're going to cover some things for you that could, as Marion said, potentially open up some new possibilities for you and potentially change your life or change other people's lives because of what you hear today. So let me just ask you, how many of you are here because you're interested in or curious about learning some possible breakthroughs that can affect how you look and feel as you age? How many of you are interested in that side of things? Okay. And how many of you here are interested in exploring a possible new source of income or recurring income or changing how your time and income are related? Okay. And how many don't know why you're here? All right, cool. All right, well, hopefully you'll have a reason by the time we're done. So one of the things I want to invite you is just to ask you to kind of ask yourself that question. You know, as we go through this, in a moment I'm going to share my story. Your story will be different. It'll be your own story. But maybe as I share a couple of things, you'll start to realize or recognize some things you've thought or felt at times, or that maybe some of the loved ones around you have thought or felt. So ask yourself, why am I here? And is there something different that I would like to see happen in my life going forward? You know, am I at a point in my life where I might be asking myself, what do I want the next chapter, next season of my life to be about? Am I at a point where I'm still looking to provide a primary income? Am I looking to get the primary income done so that it's set and keeps going? So then I've got some choices and some options for what I do with my time going forward. Am I thinking about retirement? Am I thinking about having more, I was about to think of a French word because that's where I was before, but more joy, more enjoyment of life and working and collaborating with others maybe in a way that I don't experience in the corporate world or wherever I am right now. Or maybe I'm someone who's at home raising a family. I might be a dad or a mom, and I want to also do something to express some gifts, but a 9-to-5 job or going to an office isn't something that I want to do right now because I need the flexibility for family and different things that I'm doing. So kind of exploring some of those questions. And then some of you might be looking at this and you're set, you're happy with what you're doing. Yet, as you listen, you might realize you know some people who could benefit from some of the solutions or from the business vehicle that we're going to share, and you may be able to open up a door for them. So with that, let me just share you a little bit of my background. I actually was born and raised in Southern California, and then I went to the East Coast for school. For undergrad, I did electrical engineering. So how many of you in here have an engineering background or engineering or science background? Just a couple of you, okay? And then, and I know scientists may not think of engineers as scientists, but we love each other, okay? Anyway, I went to MIT, down the road from Harvard, in the Boston area, and then I went straight from there to medical school at Columbia University in New York City. And then I went to the Chicago area and did a residency in family medicine and then a fellowship in mother-baby care and then practiced as a family doctor for a number of years. And how many of you have spent a fair portion of maybe the first quarter of your life in school or preparation for a profession? Most of us, right? We spend a fair amount of time. And so I thought this was what I was going to do the rest of my life, and I loved it. I loved working with families. I was learning and actually impacted, I learned a lot from the families I was caring from because then my wife and I, we started raising a family. And about the time we had 3 young kids, we started talking about cutting back some of my hours in clinic so we could have more time together as a family. And how many of you have ever reached a point where you started thinking about ways to, still within your profession, but create a little more flexibility or adjust the path you were on? Any of you get to that point? Okay. And so we were there and we planned for about 9 months. I was delivering lots of babies, we were seeing lots of patients, and so I kind of planned for about 9 months that at the beginning of the year I would negotiate with the practice rather than having an increase in salary, which I assumed we would be due, that I would negotiate a little bit more flexibility with my weekly schedule. And my wife was cool with that. And then what ended up happening about 9 months into that is all the doctors were called in the office and we discovered that reimbursements were going down. And even though we were very busy doing lots of work, the income of the practice was going down and we were all asked to start putting in more time every week just to make ends meet. And I suddenly found myself as a young dad and a young doctor realizing how not in control of my time I was, and realizing, like many other professions, that no matter how many years I kept doing what I was doing, not only could it get worse, where I could end up continuing to work more for less money, but that at the end of the day, if I ever stopped, my income would decrease dramatically or go away altogether. How many of you have been at some point in a situation like that, where if you stop what you're doing, your income would stop or drop dramatically, okay? And so I started asking myself for the first time, I wasn't planning to leave medicine at that point, but I was asking myself, is there a way to have some source of income that's independent of what I do from day to day, independent of my seeing patients? So whatever happens with my job, or, or maybe in some of your cases, whatever happens in the job market, I'm not wholly relying on that, and I've got some independence, so it gives me some choice, some flexibility, even some power of negotiation, okay? So I started asking myself that question, and that's when I got introduced to this collaboration and partnership, which you're getting introduced to today, and it's totally changed my family's life. So we actually went on to, we actually have 7 kids now, ages almost 17 down to 1-year-old. And so my whole family is down here in this picture. That's on the beach right near our house in Michigan, on Lake Michigan. And we actually run now an international business from the comfort of our home in a resort town across the lake from Chicago. And it's actually led us to countries like here and others in Europe, including France, where I'd never been to before and didn't know anybody before. But now, because of this, it's allowed us to have relationships and do business in countries, especially with the power of the internet, the power of connections like Marion, in places where we didn't have that kind of connection before. So it's greatly expanded our horizons and enriched our life. In fact, my almost 17-year-old daughter, the one with the big hair here, was with me in December in Paris. And just last week, she and our second daughter and I rendezvoused in Paris, and now they're visiting family and friends in Germany, and then I continued on with some of the partners in Europe and got to visit Brittany and the coast there for a little bit, and then Southampton yesterday. Thank you, Bridget, and the team from there, and then now here in London. So it's opened up a lot of doors, and then from the financial standpoint, it's allowed me to replace my physician income and go well beyond that. Okay, and it's recurring. The majority of what comes in now, month to month, continues regardless of what I do from day to day. And it's allowed me to be home with my last 4 kids from birth onward. I'm able to take my kids with me take my daughter to her dance, rehearsals and recitals and everything, and then my boys to their different sports activities. And because a lot of other parents don't have that flexibility, often the other kids are riding with us as well because they don't have, their parents aren't able to go. So it's had a huge impact on my kids' life and on our life. And then also my wife sometimes can do a 20-minute errand that turns into several hours, and we don't know where she is because she's getting a break from the kids and from all of us because I'm home and because I have that kind of flexibility. And yet with the internet and the ability to communicate and Skype and just different ways of messaging, it's getting easier and easier to have connections without being dependent on geography. Okay? And even now with WhatsApp, any of you use WhatsApp? I learned about it through some young people through my daughter, and it's been a great way to share pictures and little video clips and different things as I'm traveling. It makes my wife feel like she's part of it, and it's also part of the life we're creating going forward. Because we had what she calls our cocoon time, where we've been kind of having the kids at home, and then we also have plans for an expansion time where not only me and the kids, but also me and my wife can experience different cultures and different places because pretty much we can be anywhere now. And so it's incredible freedom that this business offers. And thirdly, it also still allowed me to do something that makes a difference in people's lives. I'm able to impact many more lives than I could one-on-one as a physician. And it both enriches us, I learn and grow, and it touches other people's lives well beyond anything I could do just myself. So the partnership and the collaboration that's here is really significant. And those of you looking at this, we're going to talk about some of the timing, because you might say that's nice for me, but the fact is, regardless of your background, if you have a desire to change something in your life, what we're about to show you is there are some things in place now that were in place that weren't in place when I got started that could allow you to create whatever your path's going to be, allow you to create and reach that much quicker than at any other time in our history. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. Oh, and I have one more personal part to the story. So that's our youngest, after he was born. This is when he was 3 days old. And it took us 3 days to decide what to name him. Our kids helped us name him, and we named him Archer Abraham Lowe. And this is actually one of the products you're going to hear about. It's the day portion of R Squared. How many of you have been able to experience Vitality or R Squared? Okay, and this is the day portion. Okay. How many of you have noticed any change since starting, a good change in how you feel? Anyone notice improvement in their sleep? Okay, changes in their sleep. Changes in their energy or focus during the day. Okay, how about maybe some changes in their appetite or cravings where they realize, I can make some new choices now. Anybody notice that? Okay, anyone, well, there's another area, but we'll keep that private, but I'll share that later. Okay, all right. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So this is my wife's triathlon number, and what's significant here is she's wanted for many years to run a triathlon, but just with having kids and being busy and different stuff, never got around to it. And then in her 40s, her knee started bothering her, where it was hard to run or pedal a bike. How many of you have noticed at some point in life that your body wasn't cooperating with you like it did when you were younger? Anybody notice that? Okay. So she started experiencing that. And thanks to some of the solutions that we're going to talk about in how they support the body in a natural and balanced way to really be as healthy as you can be, a healthier version of yourself, with that plus doing some exercise in the water, she was able to, that knee pain basically went away, and she was able to start running and biking. And thanks to this day portion of R² Vitality, she was able to actually increase her stamina and be able to swim and run without getting out of breath. So she ended up doing 2 triathlons back to back, 2 weekends in a row, completing them. And right after that, we discovered she was expecting Archer, and 9 months later he was born. So we call him our Vitality or our triathlon baby. So that's kind of a personal story there. So with that said, let me jump into really briefly the 4 categories that each of us find ourselves in or have to choose from at various times in our life. So how many of you have ever been at a point in your life where you didn't have enough time and not enough money? Anybody ever had that experience? Okay. So typically when you're working for somebody else, but many of us have experienced it at some point where we don't have time, we don't have money, at least at the levels that we want. So that's one category. Another is often someone who's retired or who's a student, where you might have a little more flexibility in your time, but you don't have the amount of money that you wanted to enjoy it. Anybody ever been in that situation where you have a little bit more free time or flexibility but don't have the income you want? Okay. And then the third one is a traditional business. And many of us think of a business person as someone who may be a little bit more successful, have a little bit more potential for money, but actually there's a lot of risk with business, and a lot of them, is that true in the UK too? A lot of them go out of business in their first few years, okay, due to the overhead and the risk and all of that. And the fact is that whether you're successful or not successful, no matter what, having your own business is generally going to eat up your time even more. Okay, because now everything stops with you. You're the first one to arrive, last one to leave, and you're working even harder. So that's the third category. And then the last category, which we want to share with you today, is to actually build a business system, to work with a business system that can allow you to build an asset. It's still going to take some time and some energy to build, but instead of just what I found myself on before, the situation I described before, it's like being on a treadmill where you just keep going. Every week, I have to do something else to bring in income. Every month, I have to do something else. Every year, I have to do something else. For me, it was seeing patients. For you, it might be something else. But the income had to be generated again, and if I stopped, if I got off the treadmill, the income would stop. Okay? And the difference here, we're going to talk about a business system where you could build something that by the very structure of it continues to generate ongoing cash flow for many years and even generations to come. So how many of you would something like that be of interest to at least learn more about? Is that something you guys would be curious about? Okay, so we'll include that today as well, or tonight as well. So those are the 4 categories. Now, those of you that have a pen, this is something you can write down. I'm going to give you 5 areas, 5 words to write down. And even if, whether or not you decide to partner with us, at least you'll walk away with a little mini business education that may serve you in evaluating other things going forward. And this is basically 5 areas that you want to evaluate anytime you're looking at something from a business standpoint. And the first one is trends. And a trend is just where there is ongoing demand in the marketplace and where money is flowing in the economy. Okay, and that's going to be very significant. So you're not just in front of a fad or something temporary, but how many of you, if you put your time and energy into something, you want to know it's going to be worth it. And you want to know that what you do is going to last, that the return is going to last. So that's why it's going to be very significant to be in front of a trend. Second, it's going to be very key. Anytime we're building something that goes beyond us, there's going to be some kind of partnership involved. Okay? Otherwise, it's all on our shoulders, and then again, when we stop, the income stops as well. So there's going to be some kind of partnership, and one of the keys is we want to know with our partners, what are 2 things we would want to know? We want to know their values, right? We want to know that the values are compatible, and then we also want to know that they're actually strong in what their part of the partnership is. In many cases, that's going to be their financial strength and ability to deliver on what they say they're going to do. So we'll talk about that. Third is going to be products or services. How do you position in front of the trend? What do you offer the trend that actually people would want, that actually sets you apart? And there are some people just try to do cheaper and make it easier, cheaper and easier. But that model, is probably only going to work if you have lots of capital and really can put, lots of stores and lots of things all over. Like in the US, we have something called Walmart. But even then, if someone else becomes cheaper, it becomes easier. And how many of you have seen some businesses go overseas or manufacturing go overseas? Your business can change overnight. So if you just rely on that being cheapest, you're just a commodity and you could lose your positioning virtually overnight. So the other word that I would write down that you're not going to see, it's the sixth word, but I would write it down right here, is the word. It's a different strategy. And it's the strategy we use, and it's the word innovation. All right? How can you invest in innovation in a way that sets you apart from anything else out there so people in this trend want what you have and can't get it anywhere else, so they come to you? That's a very strong business strategy. And then the fourth one is compensation, going back to the fact that if we put our time and energy into something, we want to know that it's going to be worth it. So we'll touch on that. And then the last one is timing, just so that you know where do you sit in the timing of things. Like, has it already happened for Marion and for Ben, or is there actual timing that's significant for you? And we'll address that as well. So with that said, how many of you have noticed some changes and some shifts happening in the economy? Are you guys seeing that in the news and stuff here, or seeing that with family or with friends? And let me just ask this. How many of you know people, it might not be you, but know people who maybe were on a path like I was, thinking they were going to do something for the rest of their life, and now either their retirement isn't as secure as they once thought it was, or maybe even their employment isn't as secure as they once thought it was. Any of you know people that are experiencing that? Is that pretty common here? Okay. So one of the trends that we're in front of is the need for supplemental income, or the need and desire for another source of income, just like myself. At the beginning, I wasn't necessarily looking to replace my physician income, but I just want to know, is there a way to have some independent source of income so I'm not fully dependent on what happened with my profession or with my employment? Okay, so that's one area. And then another area, and this is just more comments on the economy, another area is some of the changes that we've been alluding to with changes in technology. So how many of you have bought something online in the last month? Anybody bought something online in the last month? Okay, how about in the last week? Anybody bought something online in the last week? Anybody, what is today, Wednesday? Since Monday. Anybody purchased something, ordered something online since Monday? Okay. And those of you that are visiting for the first time, if you look around a little bit, when we ask people to raise their hands, you'll see how many hands are going up. So just before I came here, I actually wanted to get something. Actually, it was for one of Marion's kids, because they're going to be hosting me tonight. And I realized what I had originally planned on. My wife says, no, don't get that, get something else. But I didn't listen to her, and I got it. And then I realized, nah, it's probably not the thing they would like the best. So I said, okay, you're right. I need to get something else. And then, how many of you have ever been wrong with your spouse? Or you had to admit? Okay. All right. So, but now I was running out of time. I only had a couple days left, and it was kind of inconvenient to go to the store, and I wasn't even sure if a store around us would have what I wanted to get. So I went on to a little company, some of you might have heard of it, Amazon. I'll admit that I went on and I clicked, and because I have a Prime membership, I can get something shipped in a couple days, but I needed it faster. It was like Sunday, and I'm leaving Wednesday, and I don't know if I leave before it delivered on Wednesday, so it's going to ship Monday. I needed it Tuesday, but fortunately with my membership, the little thing said if I add $3.99, I can get it overnight. So I did, and sure enough, it came Tuesday, put it in my bag, flew out Wednesday, and lo and behold, it was very convenient. Now, I've heard that some of you also purchase, any of you purchase groceries online, or know people who purchase groceries online? So even that's changing here, okay. And then how many of you kind of ignore commercials? You either don't watch things with commercials, or you skip them, or unless they're entertaining. And then if they're entertaining, you get entertained, but you forget what it was for anyway. So companies are working harder and harder, and they're putting more and more dollars, but there's like less and less return for what they advertise on. So people aren't really paying attention to commercials. On the other hand, how many of you have tried something in the last month? Maybe it was a new place to get coffee or tea, or a restaurant, a dessert, maybe a book or CD, some music, maybe a movie. How many of you have tried something in the last month because someone recommended it? Anybody? Okay. And how many of you realize, how many of you ever read a review on Amazon, from another customer? You guys read those at all? How about on TripAdvisor? Any of you look at what other people say on TripAdvisor? So I find I like to buy technology, and sometimes even when I'm ordering something for the household on Amazon, I love to read the reviews of other people, because I want to know someone who tried it, what did they think, what did they do? And same with TripAdvisor when we're going somewhere, and my sister and I know other people who use it all the time. So we tend to listen more to other people like ourselves and what they did and what their experience is than paying attention to corporate advertising. Would you say that's kind of true? right now in commercials. So that's a huge shift. And rather than be like a big corporation and just try to put more money into advertising, we want to shift and really pay attention to where things are going and really be savvy from a business standpoint and position in front of that and take advantage of that. Okay? And so here's the traditional model, and you guys are all familiar with this. You know, there's a manufacturer somewhere, and then warehouse, and then it gets to more, things are pretty much international now, so often it has to get to the local country, you get a local warehouse, and then regional distribution, and finally to the retail outlet where you can go to the store and buy it. So there's a whole chain of distribution, and we already talked about all the advertising and the cost of that, plus money changes hands every time this happens. And most of us, if you look at this model, where could we participate? Most of us do not have the capital or the angel investors, do you call them angel investors or venture capitalists, to invest in us manufacturing or starting our own company. Okay, some of you might, but then again, there's a lot of risk and a lot of time involved. But so where can most of us participate here? It's generally going to be as an employee, right? Working for some place. And then you're still in that place where you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, you're working for somebody else. So let's talk about a different model. And we talked about even people are ordering groceries online. Okay, so what if we could capitalize on that shift in behavior and be like Amazon, where you're not manufacturing things yourself, you're actually partnering with someone who's creating wonderful solutions that people want, and all you do is connect them. And as you connect them, you get that money that normally would have gone to advertising and to all those local and regional distributors and warehousing and all that can actually be shared with those of you that create those connections. And more money is left over, too, to go into R&D, because all those millions of dollars doesn't have to go into advertising. So we're going to talk about the R&D and the innovation of these solutions as well. So that's part of what we're talking about today. Now, another aspect of trend, okay, is how many of you know somebody who's getting older? Anybody? Okay. And how many of you have looked in the mirror in the last 10 years and noticed some changes in the mirror? Anybody? Okay. How many of you secretly have noticed some changes around here? Okay, anyway, all right, as the time progresses. And then we already talked about our bodies not, cooperating with us as much as we wanted to. So there's changes there, and people are looking for solutions. In fact, probably about $1 trillion is expected to be spent annually in this arena by people by 2025. And it's interesting, another interesting stat is about almost half of the money that's spent in this arena is spent by people age 40 and under. Okay, so a lot of people, and let me just ask you this, even those of you that might be young and active and healthy right now, and those of you that are in the middle and beyond, how many of you know that when you think about your future, you don't want to end up, if possible, limited physically with a walker, in a wheelchair, in a retirement, or in a nursing home or a bed or something like that? How many of you know that while you're here, you want to stay as active and live a full quality of life while you're here? Okay, so people are making different choices because they want to stay healthy, and we want to position in front of that trend. Also, there's some major breakthroughs now that are, for the first time in the last few years, it's becoming understood that our genes, our DNA, is not our destiny. In other words, you're not doomed or just stuck with what you're born with. Which is as important, or actually more important, is the expression or the signals those genes give off, and those tend to change as we age. And we can now, for the first time, affect them so you can be the best version of you at whatever age you are. How many of you would find that valuable? Okay, and that's also valuable from a business standpoint. So that's an area we are. In fact, here's a Time magazine article, and as I mentioned earlier, I was on the train over the weekend, and we saw a French magazine where the whole magazine was on living young. Okay, it was about living to 100 young, or staying young until you're 100. So the idea now is not only trying to live longer, but again, more and more people are interested in however long I am going to live, I want to be healthy. I want to be fully functional. I want to feel young while I'm here. So that's a huge trend and huge demand that's out there. So, and we've talked about some of the connections and how easy it is to connect and communicate online. How many of you use something called Facebook? Any of you familiar with that? Okay. And we already talked about WhatsApp, and there's many other apps. So the world is connected like never before. And how many of you in the last few years have been able to connect or reconnect with people that otherwise, because of the internet, have been able to connect or reconnect with someone that you otherwise would never have met or reconnected with? Anybody? Okay. So it's really changing our ability to connect across borders and without limitations. So that's the trend. Now let's talk about our partners. So we're going into the second category here. And this is actually, and we're going to hit those two areas. One is how strong are they financially and how able are they to do what they say they will do, and second is their values. So the first is how strong they are. This is actually a whole city block. This is a brand new $100 million innovation center that was just built by the company headquarters in Utah, and it's a 3-story innovation center. It's wonderful to eat lunch there. My wife and I have gotten to do it, and I've got to do it with different partners, and have like the CEO of the company, Truman Hunt. This is a $3.2 billion company, and have him just stroll in to get lunch and say hello, and that's the kind of connection that they have with their partners. They really see themselves not as just a big corporation, but really as partners with those who are actually taking this to the marketplace, including Dr. Joe Chang, who I think we'll have a picture of in a minute, who's one of the chief scientists. He also, one of the reasons he's here, as well as the 75 or more other scientists, is because they actually can see their research turn into real solutions that benefit people, and they can actually see the people and see how it's changing lives, and they love that. So this was actually designed by the same people, that the architects that designed the Apple stores. It's a beautiful center, and the reason we show it is that at a time when many companies are just hoping to survive this economy, or maybe even are going under, this company is actually cash rich enough to be able to build and expand and support the growth that is about to happen from here forward, and we'll show you that in a moment. So it's a very strong partner to partner with financially. Now, I also want to mention some outside references, because sometimes it's easy to, people will always say something good about their own, partners or about themselves. So sometimes we just want to know, how does this fit in terms of things that I actually know, so I can know where to fit it in the greater, world that I know. And so how many of you have heard of Forbes magazine? You guys heard about it here? Okay. So popular business resource, and they actually rated this company, Nu Skin Enterprises, in the top 5 of the top 100 most trustworthy companies in America today. And how many of you are familiar with the Oscars or the Academy Awards? Do you guys follow that at all? Okay. So the Stevie's Award is like the Academy Awards of business. And this company has actually won it multiple times for social entrepreneurship and for most innovative company and best CEO. And most recently, they won it again for most innovative company. And just to give you another outside reference, because you might not have heard of the Stevies, but it's like the Academy Awards of business. And this last time, this company actually shared the stage with another company that you're familiar with. We won it for our sizing category as most innovative company, and this other company won it for a most innovative company in their sizing category. You want to know what the other company was? How many of you have something in your hand, on your lap, in a purse or pocket that has a little Apple on it? Anybody? How many of you are, at least are sitting next to someone that has it? Okay. All right. We share the stage with Apple Computer. All right. So that just gives you an outside reference in the business world of how this company is viewed in terms of its financial strength and in terms of innovation. So those of you that have your business cap on, you can get a sense of, if I was going to do something, I would want to have that kind of strength and that kind of innovation and that kind of positioning in the business world to partner with. All right, let's continue here. Let's see what's next. These are just outside news references, again, to let you know how the outside world is looking at Nu Skin, so you don't feel it's just us making claims right now. All right. Now, the second part, besides the financial strength we talked about, is the values. What are the values of our partners? And this is significant to realize, and I love sharing this with people because this company's very reason for existence, it was founded 30 years ago, and its very reason for existing is to make a difference in people's lives, really to be a force for good in the world and make a difference. And so that informs all the decisions they make. They want to do that both with the business model. That's why they've chosen to use a social business model to really change people's lives with the business vehicle, so people like myself could have more freedom and flexibility with their time and do something meaningful that enriches other people's lives, okay? And also with the products and solutions, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then lastly, with a culture of giving back. And so we do that with our Force for Good Foundation and our Nourish the Children program. The Nourish the Children program takes our science and puts it in nourishing vitamin meals that are distributed all around the world. They're completely vegetarian, and because they're nutritionally complete, they not only fill bellies, they actually meet the malnutrition of children all over the world. And one of the leading causes of blindness around the world is malnutrition. So we're not just talking about death, we're talking about all kinds of things that affect brain development, the immune system, blindness, as I mentioned, and it has a huge impact. And this is often often associated with education programs. So now kids are not only getting fed, parents are sending their kids to school so they can get these meals. They're getting educated, and we're actually empowering communities like in Malawi, actually empowering them to be able to be self-sustaining and do this themselves. So really an enriching program, and we're privileged that as distributors, in partnership with the company, we have now provided over 350 million meals, and that number is growing every day, and we'd love to have you, if nothing else, even partner with us in that, because you can certainly do that independently of everything else we share tonight. So that shows the heart of the company. Now, I mentioned the science behind this, and here's Dr. Joe Chang on the upper left, who is the scientist overseeing all the teams. The middle one, Dr. Mark Bartlett, actually he's from New Zealand, like a guy who was sharing earlier, and he actually was with the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, which is a very respected organization in the US, and then he came to work with us. Dr. Helen Nags is there, and then 75 world-class scientists who are leaders in their field in different disciplines. And just to give you a sense of how significant that is, as a doctor, I got a lot of patients used to bring me brochures of different products they were asking about or that they were marketing, and I would look at them, and at best, most of them would have a single scientist or a single MD that was kind of the figurehead for that label, or in some cases it was based on their research, but it was all based on one person's research. And in some cases there weren't any scientists on staff at all. They were just putting ingredients together and then releasing it to the marketplace and creating testimonials and then marketing it based on testimonials. So I just want you to get a sense of how committed this company is to really investing in R&D and into science, to have leaders in their field from around the world that have chosen to partner with our company. And we've asked some of them why. Why did you choose to come here and why do you stay? And the common denominator that they have shared is because it allows their research not to get stuck in red tape or not to get taken by some pharmaceutical company and changed into something artificial and then go somewhere where they have no control over what happens to it, but where it actually goes directly into solutions that benefit people and they can actually see how it changes people's lives. All right, so that's why they're here. And as we continue here, one of these groups of scientists is LifeGen Technologies out of the University of Wisconsin, who have been working for about 30 years on the genetics of aging. They have some of the breakthrough research on caloric restriction and longevity, which is actually breaking news when I was in medical school. I remember reading about it. And so these are leaders in their field, internationally recognized, and yet they've chosen to partner exclusively with us for the reasons I just mentioned. And I'm just giving you these references so you can get a sense of how significant this is, because maybe you're looking at other possibilities and there's some scientists involved and different things like that. Here you're looking at leaders in their field in multiple disciplines that are all coming to work at that innovation center I just showed you and at our centers, because we actually have more than one of those around the world that they're choosing to partner in. And this one in particular is significant because that little chip right there, actually, you see here, actually allows us to see a window into the signals that our genes give off. That right here you see a young healthy cell. Here's a middle-aged cell, and you can see the green is a low signal, red is a high signal. So in this middle one you can see the low is now high and the high is now low. So middle-aged, the signals are getting out of tune. And until now we just had to live with that. And that was part of what we called aging. You know, I'm just getting older. My body's breaking down. There's nothing I can do. Maybe I need to take some medications now. But now, because we have this window, we can actually take what nature already has to offer, but now we can actually measure and optimize the blends to retune and fine-tune these signals back to a more youthful and balanced pattern. That's what you see on the right here, where it's almost identical, about 92% reset back to the more youthful pattern. So let me ask you this, whether it's the sagging or changes you're seeing in the mirror or around the waist, or maybe your memory, your energy, your sleep, your joints, how many of you, if you could actually have a way in a natural and balanced way to retune your own system, your own brain and body so it's working better with you and really allowing you to be the best version of you that you can be today, how many of you would find that valuable? Okay? Be significant. And how about from a business standpoint, how many of you would realize that would be really significant to be able to offer to the marketplace? All right, put you in a very special position. So that's what we're talking about. And it's much like, because you'll see some other things in the news. One of the neat things, because we have so many teams of scientists working, we tend to be the first to bring certain ideas and recognize certain value. And often over the next 2 or 3 years, you start seeing it in the popular media because we tend to identify the trends first. And so you might start hearing other people and see other things in the news about genes and aging and breakthroughs and maybe someone trying to deal with obesity obesity gene or the aging gene or different things like that. But at best, other companies that are doing that, it's like trying to tune an orchestra. Like this is 52 genes, and this is just affecting one area, the energy centers of our cells. That's very significant and critical for all of life, your brain, heart, and muscle health. Okay, but other companies that are just starting to get into this arena, that are working with one gene or two genes or one hormone or two hormones, it's kind of like trying to tune an orchestra by only tuning a tuba or only tuning a violin. The rest of the orchestra is still playing out a tune. And with our bodies, because everything interacts, you actually run the risk of throwing things out of balance and maybe having a temporary benefit, but then ending up worse off than you were before. So we're in a completely different category or class that hasn't existed before that allows us to retune our own system so we can be the best and balanced state that we can be at any given center. And just to turn this from theory into reality, let me show you a couple specifics. So I shared with you my wife's story. One other factor let's see. Oh, and this ability is called age lock, okay, and that just refers to resetting and rebalancing this gene expression. One other factor is that my wife, ever since actually a couple years ago when my oldest daughter turned 15, my wife mentioned that for 15 years I haven't slept. Because often as a busy mom, how many of you ever, when you're busy, you forget to eat? Any of that happen for any of you? So sometimes she does, and then what happens is your adrenaline goes up. And then by the end of the day, your adrenaline's kind of going because you haven't eaten, your adrenaline's kind of helping your liver release sugar so you can still function and be alive. But then when you got all that adrenaline going, it's hard to sleep and you're hungry. Or if one of the kids woke her up at night, it was hard to go back to sleep. And so for the first time in 15 years, once she got that R squared that my son was holding, the R squared day, actually, and now we've got the nighttime part too that purifies your cells. But once she got that day part, it actually helps your sleep as well. And for the first time, she was able to go back to sleep when she was waking and feel refreshed. And so it was life-changing for her. And she has mentioned it again and again, and it's changed our whole household because now we have a happy wife and a happy mom. And that makes a difference at home, okay? So that solution, R squared, actually affects three major areas of energy: mental, physical, and the third one is sexual for both men and women. So let me just ask you for a minute, how many of you know someone who would like to improve at least one of those three areas? Okay, anybody? Okay, so just imagine the power of that naturally in a balanced way, without sugar, without stimulants. Athletes can use this, okay? So it's been tested for no banned substance use because I know we have some fitness professionals in here, and it's very, very significant. Now, along with technology and science, we have some major breakthrough devices basically units or physical units that have been developed with our science and technology. One of them is the biophotonic scanner. Looks kind of like a Star Trek device, works with Bluetooth, it's wireless, battery operated, and very remarkably in 30 seconds can actually give you a reliable index of your antioxidant status that's more accurate than blood testing. All right, this is developed the same university that developed the artificial heart. It's a very high level of technology. About $150 million was invested in research over years' time to eventually get us to the state where we are now. And you can actually experience this tonight with the person who invited you. But more significantly, how many of you have ever wondered whether you take supplements or not? How many of you have seen that there's lots of choices in the market today? Have you guys seen that? And how many of you have ever wondered, or know people who have wondered, you know, if I do take something, how do I know what to take, and how do I know it's not just going down the drain and I'm wasting my money? Anybody ever wondered that? Okay. So what if you could actually measure and see in 30 seconds both where you are now, but also over time, if you took something that's formulated by these teams of scientists and is the only supplement in the world that is guaranteed, has a performance guarantee to raise your score or your money back. How many of you realize that if you could actually measure and see if what you're taking is actually getting absorbed, that would make a difference for you? Okay? And think of it from a business standpoint. If you could measure that sets you apart from anything else in the marketplace today. And also, if you have the best science and the best product, rather than just saying it like everyone else says, you can actually show it. Okay? You can actually test people. Whatever they're taking, whatever they're doing now, they can see it. They have a performance guarantee from the company to take this and see if their score goes up and actually be able to measure. That would set you apart business-wise and help people see the value in choosing what you have to offer versus someone else, and validate all the science and all this effort that they're putting into the science to create a valuable product. And one of the wonderful things is we talked about aging, okay, everybody's aging, that we actually work from both the outside in and from the inside out. So again, think from a business standpoint. If you could comprehensively and in an innovative way be in the cutting edge of really providing solutions that work from both the outside in and inside out, how significant that would be. So here is, I don't know if I see one physically, but here is a handheld device that allows you to get a patented technology that used to only be available in high-end spas. You had to go to a high-end spa, maybe spend $150, $200, or pounds, I know, was it 100? Here, right from someone's bag, okay? Look at this, all right? But that, so most of us, many of us may not have even heard of that or had that done. Some of you have had it done. But just like with cell phones, computers, laptops, think of this. When computers went from being in a whole room with punch cards, which is what my dad worked with when I was little, to being, desktop computers and then laptop computers, and now you basically have a computer on your phone. Do you think more people started using technology each time it became cheaper and shrunk in size? Did more people start using it, okay, than were using it before? All right, it opened up whole new markets. Well, we took this technology, shrunk it down in cost and size, and created a patented handheld device that calibrates to your own skin, that helps purify your skin and get these age-lock, anti-aging ingredients to the tissue sites where they actually have the most effect. And most people can see a difference the first time they use it in like 10 minutes, okay? Use it for like 10 minutes and over the next 15, 20 minutes, see a difference. But even better than that, over time, really see a transformation in, some people call this a wrinkle iron because it starts to erase lines and wrinkles. Now, how many of you might be interested in something like that or know somebody, I know not everybody maybe, but some of you know somebody who might be interested in erasing lines and wrinkles? Okay, now think of this, without injections, without surgery, without anything artificial, and without covering up with makeup, but actually because your own cells are getting younger and healthier before your eyes. Would that be valuable, okay, in the marketplace? Think of that. So let's show you some results. All right, and again, age lock refers to our ability to retune the signals and reset them to a more youthful and balanced pattern. It's a blockbuster brand. It's actually gone to a couple billion, or actually since it's been introduced. Now this is a wonderful woman who was a teacher. Then she became eventually the top female insurance agent in the United States a number of years back. But she didn't, so she had that money, but she didn't have time. Okay, and she wanted the time. And so she actually joined and partnered with us, and she's become very successful, and many of you have seen her face because she also, of course, uses the products, and she uses that galvanic technology, and this is our age-lock transformation system. So just in washing your face and putting on a little serum and your moisturizer, day and night moisturizer, just in doing stuff that you might do anyway, and even if you're a guy, maybe at least splash or wash your face, well, now you could splash or wash your face with something that's resetting the genes, okay, in seconds or minutes. And she started using it, and how many of you, even in the back, can see her neck? She calls it her turkey neck. Can you guys see the difference back there? Okay, so her turkey neck, and this is actually, I think it will say 90 days, but it was actually about 8 or 9 weeks because we know her personally and how long it actually took. And she's actually come to New Buffalo since then, and she looks even better and more vivacious than she does in the pictures here. So it's made a huge difference. So how many of you, if there was a way to turn back the clock, realize there's a huge market for this? We have a number of people in this room, and I even talked to someone this afternoon who, even if they do nothing else, they realize, well, I want that, and actually I know people who want that too. Okay, so they at least wanted to try the products. Here's another example, a little bit younger woman. Can you guys all see the difference in how puffy her face looks here and a little more red, and then how it's like tighter in tone and she looks more relaxed and refreshed? Can you guys kind of see that? Okay, so now imagine, think ahead, 5 to 10 years out. Most of us, what can we expect in 5 to 10 years without solutions like we're talking about here? Can most of us expect to look younger and better or worse going forward? Okay? So if you lined up a bunch of pictures, over 5 to 10 years, the pictures over here, you'd usually expect to look older, right? But what we're seeing more and more is this kind of pattern. And as the time goes on, it gets even more dramatic, where over here on the right, people are looking younger and healthier than they do on the left, even though this was the earlier picture. So we're changing people's path, and again, not artificially, but they're actually becoming a younger, healthier version of themselves. Now again, how many of you see that that would be valuable to you or to someone you know, and valuable from a business standpoint if you could offer that? In fact, innovation, here's another interesting thing about innovation, because some people think innovation is, we changed, how many legs do chairs generally have? 4, right? So some people think innovation is, I did it without the back on it, or I changed the color, or whatever. But really, innovation the way Apple does it is they change how we do things. They changed how we listen to our music, right? Went from CDs to electronic to these little personal devices. How many of you have changed your music to you're listening to a lot of it electronically now, right? They changed. How many of you have something that you use a finger to move it around? Anybody have something like that on your phone or a pad? Okay, they changed how we do things. Well, in the same things, we're changing how people do things and opening up things that weren't possible before. And so just think of that from a business standpoint, if you could be part of offering that to people. Here's on the arm. So how many of you have parts of your body that are changing shape in ways you didn't mean for them to? Anybody? Okay. So this is under the arms, and you can see, can you see on the top there, see on the top on the left, how thick, how much the arm's hanging down, and on the right where she's treated that the arm is much thinner. Okay. This is, that's day 11. Here's day 5, so it actually goes up. And we're seeing people with this. This is the same galvanic technology, but in a body spa that not only helps get the ingredients deeper in the tissues, but it helps move fluid in the tissues. People are using this on their arms, on their bellies, on their thighs. So while they're getting healthier on the inside, they can also melt away actually cellulite. You might think, is this possible? But the neat thing about this from a personal standpoint and from a business standpoint is it doesn't have to just be claims. People can actually see the results. In a moment, I'm going to show you how much the growth is, and the growth would not be happening if people were not seeing results and reordering and continuing to use things. And when I say reordering, it's because the gels or the special treatments that they use with it, you keep reordering. It's kind of like selling a car, but then making money on the gas that people keep using to Anybody would like that if you could make money every time someone filled their gas tank? Okay. But unfortunately, that model doesn't exist for us out there, but it does here. All right, so this is significant in what it can do. Also, because it moves fluid in the tissues, we're actually finding people that are seeing changes in their varicose veins, in swelling in their legs or extremities. Some people that have had surgery for breast cancer or other kind of conditions and they have swelling, and then with using a spa, it's helping a lot with that swelling. And again, we don't make medical treatment claims, but I'm just letting you know what people are experiencing. Okay, and then we have some people that have different kinds of pain. In fact, just before coming here, there's a young woman who had fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. Is that what you guys call it here? And she has gotten to be on our square to make a huge difference in her functionality and her energy and her ability to get up and go out and do things. So it's been life-changing for her. But in addition, recently she's had, because of an accident, she's had some sciatic pain. And she mentioned because she heard that this is helping move fluid and that has a little bit of electric charge, she just puts it on her back for about 5 to 10 minutes, and it makes a huge difference in the pain going down her leg, sometimes for several days, okay, and helps resolve that. So again, your experience might be different, but I'm just letting you know kind of the range of experiences people are having, and just think of how life-changing that could be for someone. All right, and these are the kinds of things you can connect people to. So now I'm going to talk to you. We did briefly a couple different areas, and I'm going to mention one more area in a second, but of product in science and what you offer. Now we're going to go to the fourth area. We're going to mix the fourth and fifth area, compensation and timing, a little bit. So here's a little bit on timing. Okay, and this is growth. And can you guys all see the little thin blue bar on this one, and then how the colored bar gets bigger on the top? That's actually the amount of our launches. Before 2009, actually our launches tended in various regions tended to be about 5 million or less each time we introduced a new product or innovation. In 2009, we introduced the ageLOC transformation system that you saw on Anne's neck and on her face. All right, and in one weekend, we sold 17 million, and that was still in just one region, people that were at a convention in the United States. So, but 17 million, it blew away anything we had ever done before just because of the demand. We realized, wow, something's happening here. Then we started fine-tuning how we introduce the new products in our system for how we do that into the marketplace, and you can see the numbers are going up. And then in last October, we actually, for the first time, coordinated a global launch all at the same time that exceeded $500 million in revenue, okay, at one time. And I mentioned that. These are not numbers we deal as human beings, most of us deal with every day, but listen to the significance of that. That's the largest product launch that's happened in our industry ever. Okay, in the history of the world, and meaning right, up till this point. And most companies don't even have the capital to have that much product on hand. There's huge amounts of capital investment and logistics that has to take place to be able to make that much product available all at the same time. And this company was able to do that and to have that kind of demand and to have something so unique that that many people wanted it around the world. And we're about to eclipse this. We anticipate in the next year or two probably exceeding a launch that exceeds $1 billion. Now, remember, we talked about wanting to build something that keeps going. So we are interested not just in launch amounts, but we're interested in how much do people keep reordering and keep using, because that's what builds the recurring income. And so this gray area, can you all see that that's going up significantly as well? Okay, that's the recurring revenue of what people are reordering and repurchasing because they love what this does for them. So that shows you the strength of what you're in front of today. All right, now this is the final area of products. There's actually a lot of solutions, and the person who invited you can kind of consult with you about areas you might be specifically interested in, but I'm giving you kind of the big areas that we're in. So the last area, product-wise, is how many of you have noticed, past your teens, that each decade you don't get away with the same eating patterns that you did when you were younger. Anybody notice that? Okay, men and women. And we found that the metabolism changes and our body tends to hold on fat. And we've also found whether you're a man or you're a woman, each decade, as you age, it gets harder and harder for your body to maintain muscle, which is really significant because how many of you have an elderly relative or have ever hugged someone that's older, man or woman, and noticed that they're like all skin and bones? Any of you notice that? And that a big risk for the elderly is the risk of tripping and falling and breaking something. And that can be life-changing because some of them never recover from that. And they end up with pneumonia or something else, and that puts them out of commission. So we want to change that equation. So preserving muscle, even if you're not looking to lose weight, is significant. But on top of that, body composition is very significant. Can you guys all see this waist? Middle-aged man, okay, that's huge, and that has increasing risk factors for diabetes, cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, all kinds of factors, not to mention how he feels and his sex life and other things as well. And this is a factor for both men and women. Now, how many of you know someone that's ever tried to lose weight before? Anybody know someone? And how many of you know someone that's tried to lose weight before and the weight's come back? Anybody? Now, how many of you know someone who's done that multiple times? Okay. Now, let me ask you this: for someone who's done that multiple times, like most things, if we do it more than once, like if we're learning to ice skate and we do it more than once, we get better, right? It gets easier. Now, with someone who's tried to lose weight and has come back and tried to lose weight and has come back, does it get easier or does it get harder to lose weight after a while? It gets harder, right? Because what we found is people lose fat, but when they're losing weight, most of the time they're losing muscle too, and it can be as high as 40%. Almost half of that can be muscle. And muscle is the main thing besides our organs that actually burns calories when we're at rest. And how many of you would like your body to be burning calories even while you're just sitting in the chair? Would that be nice? Okay. Well, actually it does. And muscle is one of the things that affects how many calories your body is burning. So if you're losing muscle, you're losing your ability to burn calories. And so as you lose weight and you lose that ability, what happens? The weight eventually starts to creep up. And when it creeps up, do you think people gain back muscle or mostly fat? So now you're worse off than you were before, and it gets harder and harder. So we want to change that equation and really do it right. And so we created the TR90 system that uses our science that can see and fine-tune these signals that affect how we burn fat to actually help us burn fat without burning muscle. Okay? And we combine that with research into how the patterns of eating can affect you and exercise so that you have all three components. Okay, so it's not a magic pill. It's actually a system that helps support you to make healthy choices and really set you on a different path from here onward. Because we're all on a certain path of aging, of decline from wherever we are now. What we want to do is change that path. So we're not only interested in you having a quick fix or losing weight right now, we're interested in really setting you on a different path that's going to serve you for the rest of your life. How many of you that would be more important and more valuable to you to really make a lifelong change? Okay, that's healthier. That's what we're talking about here. And so what this does is it actually affects your appetite, your mood, and your body, your ability to burn fat and preserve lean muscle. Here's a gentleman, and it shows what he's lost in inches, okay? And we're really focused, instead of on weight alone, we're focusing on inches, especially around the waist, because we're really looking at body composition. We want to transform that body composition. In fact, we have a woman in Canada who is what we call skinny fat. She's like 128 pounds. She didn't have any weight to lose, but when she got tested with a very high quality test to see how much percent body fat she had, she was really higher than she should be for health reasons, and she was what we call skinny fat. And that woke her up because she's actually a yoga instructor and thought of herself as pretty fit. So she went on this TR90 program, and she actually gained a pound, all right? She didn't lose any weight. She gained a pound. Some of you may have seen her pictures, and she actually, though, when she saw the pictures of herself, she was like amazed. Wow, this is really changing, because her shape really reshaped her body. Now, when I was younger, I still remember in Reader's Digest, there was a little cartoon. It was a cartoon of a woman looking in the mirror, and this part was wider than this part, okay? And in the cartoon, she stands on her head, and then she gets back up, and she looks in the mirror, and everything's where she wants it to be, okay? And we wish that would be that easy. But that's really what we're talking about here, is reshaping our bodies so the fat is burned away, and the muscle comes back in our shape, and that's what happened for this woman. And it's actually happened. How many of you have gotten a chance to experience TR90 and have noticed some changes in your shape or inches, okay? I'll tell you, even for me, I had already maximized, because knowing some of this information, eating as healthily as I could, and doing a little bit of exercise, a little bit of push-ups, and playing with my kids and stuff like that, I'd already maximized where I could be, and I'd actually lost 1 pant size, okay? But as I started to do this and feeling good, and then you start, how many of you know when you start seeing changes, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll do a little bit more. You know, when you start feeling good or start seeing some changes, it gives you hope again that you could actually make changes and it would make a difference, so you continue to do it. Well, since then, I've continued to make changes, and how many of you have ever had a teenage daughter in your household? Anybody? And are your teenagers usually complimentary to you as parents or not? Okay? All right, so we have that experience too at home. So, but actually with this, with TR90, my daughter has actually mentioned, wow, Dad, you're looking better. And of course, my wife's noticed some things, and I'm actually getting more muscle tone up here and continue to lose weight here. In fact, this belt I just bought a couple of weeks ago, and it just went to the first hole. And I bought it because my other belt was no longer working. But when Norbert, is that right? Norbert gave me the mic, and it's kind of heavy in my pocket. I realized, wow, I got to tighten my belt one more so these things stay up, okay? And so things are changing, and what's exciting is it starts to build a momentum where it's almost like once you kind of turn the corner, it's like getting a train. The train's going in one direction, and now you got to kind of stop it and now get it going in another direction. But once you get it going in another direction, get those patterns going, it's almost like it has a momentum of its own, and it gets easier and easier to burn or melt away the fat and preserve the muscle. How many of you would like that change to happen in your body or in your life? So these are the kinds of things, and imagine being able to offer that to the world today. And this is just another example of what's different about the solutions we bring. And notice that everything we're talking about, you can either measure, you can see, or you can demonstrate the difference that it's making. And that's why people the growth is happening, where new people are wanting to try these solutions, and we're seeing the results that we're seeing, okay? And weight management is a huge area. I think you guys are all kind of aware of that. So let me continue. We already talked about personal recommendation that you guys have. Okay, thank you. All right, so let me wrap up here with one other area. So we talked about the different solutions. We talked about the model of going direct to consumer. Let me just talk to you briefly about compensation. All right, and just really the results you can get. So when you partner here, you have the opportunity, those of you looking at this from a business standpoint, to build something small, medium, or large. And we all start here, but you can decide, and you can let the person know who invited you what you're interested in building, and you can learn how to do this with our system and support. And I just want to show you kind of the range of what's possible here real briefly. So this is just a slide. If you choose to do this as a business, you're going to want to become something called an executive, and it's almost like having your own virtual franchise. And if you find some partners, how many of you feel it would be reasonable to find 4 people, let's say even in a year's time, that want a different path? That realize the path they're on is not going the direction they want, and they might want a different path, and if in a few years I could build an income that was recurring, that might be valuable to them. How many of you feel that you could find at least 4 other people that might want something different, okay? Well, you find 4 other people who learn and do exactly what you do, all right? The average incomes this company pays, you can see there on number 4, and I believe that's in, so it's more like in pounds, it would be like 1,800 pounds, okay, on average. So how many of you, that 1,800 pounds a month would make a difference in your household? Not as a full-time income, but at least in addition to whatever you have now. Because most people do this part-time, okay? And then if you continue, just to see the range, over here on the right, you see you can grow this to, now 10,000 would be about 6,000 pounds or something like that. So somewhere between 4 and then finding 8 partners who choose to learn and do exactly what you do. A lot of people choose to go full-time, because 6,000 pounds, could a lot of you cover your basic expenses with 6,000 pounds a month, or be pretty close would make a difference? Okay. All right. Well, good. Okay. Some people are laughing, so it sounds like it would. Okay. Now, once you do that, you realize you're probably getting pretty good at this, and you may decide to go a little bit further. And with our training and systems and support, you can go here to where you find 12 partners who learn and do exactly what you do. Now you can see the average incomes. Is this how many? 26,000 pounds, so about 26,000 pounds a month. So how many of you, somewhere in this range, from about 1,800 pounds a month to 26,000 pounds a month, and these are averages. I'm giving you the averages for any of you wondering, okay? So how many of you could see somewhere in that range something that would make a difference for you, okay? Okay, and then it would be worth it if within a few years' time you could learn and build something that could grow to that on average. Would that be worth it? Especially if it was recurring and could keep happening once you built it. All right, so that's what we're talking about today. And lastly, we talked about the connections. Well, you guys, Bridget was showing me a map of the UK. The penetration here in the UK is extremely small. The market here is wide open. And we talked about that there shifts are happening. There's a next generation of people who are coming up who want a better future. The market is wide open for you to connect people with solutions, whether they want to look or feel their best or they really want to change the direction in their financial pathway. So the last thing I'm going to just mention to you, two things. One is that not only the solutions I mentioned are available to you, but going forward, the scientists, the teams of scientists I mentioned are already working on solutions from the next several years. Okay, so as you build and connect people here now, and they fall in love with what's here, there'll be new solutions coming that will be cutting edge at that time that will continue to flow through here. So you can build this once and get paid for many years and even generations to come. And then the final thing, because many of us want to know, okay, that sounds great, but how do I do this? And can I do this? Is that there's a whole system in place. We're doing this tonight, and while this is happening, there's a whole system where you could be referring someone online. You connected on Facebook or LinkedIn, connect over Skype. Maybe they're in the States or they're in Spain or in France, and they can be connecting to other training and events like this that are happening there. And you don't have to be in all these places at the same time. So there's a whole system for you to learn how to do this and to leverage and allow this to grow virtually without a ceiling. How many, if you do something, want to know at least there's not a limit to what you could build? You know, those of you that are business people. And there's really no limit to what you could build, and we're at a season where what you build could grow faster than ever before. We're actually at 3.2 billion as of last year, and the last billion of that 3 billion actually all happened last year. And we're expected to hit 5 billion in the next year or two, and then 10 billion by 2020, which means the majority of the income is actually happening now, and you could be part of creating that. And how many of you, even a sliver of that on a monthly basis, would make a difference for you? Okay? Especially if you could do that and connecting people with solutions and with a vehicle and partnerships that make a difference in people's lives. Now, this is a special training booklet, part of the system that you'll get connected with when you decide to get started. And again, there's a whole system to support you. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Marion so you can hear from a couple other people and their experience and decide what you'd like to do. So thank you very much. All right.